All right, welcome to Real Outdoors. Captain Adam here with my good friends Captain George from the Freestyle and Captain Shane from Dreamweaver Lures and Dreamweaver the Vessel as well. We are here at Dreamweaver Studios and we are going to do some Meat 101.
Okay.
So bait rigs, meat, preparation. We want all George's secrets.
Well, Shane's got some too.
All right, well, hopefully we get some of those.
All right. Well, I guess we can start out. Go ahead, Shane.
I was going to say, you got more secrets than I do because you taught me.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess we can start out. Now, this is 101 meat rigs. And there's a couple different kinds. You want to hand me that one? Grab me
yeah.
that pickle or
There's the A-bomb.
the A-bomb. Yeah. All right. There's a couple different, and then hand me that pickle one. There's more. There's also, but these are kind of like the three basic types of meat rigs, and with the material. So I guess we can start out with this one right here. This is your moomo, which is a real great meat rig, especially for me earlier in the morning, running it behind a white crush, white slick, or white dot, white black dot. So when you get this, open up the package. There's some toothpicks in here, and then you get the meat head and the teaser, right? Well, like I say, this is 101. You want to undo that for me, Shane?
Sure.
And so it's got this little tail on it. And I think all three of these have tails on them. And people say, well, what do you need this tail on here for? Well, I think it adds a little life to the meat rig. But you don't want to just run it like this out of the package. You want to take and split these, okay? You want to split these, and so when it's going through the water, it's got a little like this behind it. And it helps cover up the side that, like the front side that goes in, we got the scales and stuff on there. And then this back side's just a piece of plain meat. I think that this adds a little life to it. And
You can
and kind of covers that up.
kind of do the same thing with the teasers too.
Yeah, you got to do the same thing with the teasers.
Well, there's two different styles of teasers. So one we like to call like a fly, and then one is a Twinkie.
Twinkie, yeah,
And
right
the
here.
Twinkie ones are made out of that same tape material, and
Those are the ones you got to pull
those
apart.
are the ones you want to be pulling apart.
Yeah, and so, and now what I like to do too is if you want to, there's some meat right here. You want to?
You're going to make me get my hands dirty?
So I'll give you a little.
I'll do it too.
I'll give you a quick 101. Something that we carry on the boat are these just these like EMS shears. They're cheap, and they're not. They don't rust real bad as long as you keep them clean.
Why don't you give me a pair here, and we'll get right to it. Tried to talk Shane into getting his hands fishy, but he didn't want to do it. Kind of slowed down on that job, so he wouldn't have to grab the meat. But anyway, I use Dreamweaver meat right here. There's several different kinds out, but this has been my staple. I've always, I used to use some Erie Deary meat when that was out, and I've used different ones, but I use a Dreamweaver now.
That's actually a ballyhoo product.
Yeah, and so I'm going to take this piece of meat and put it in the meat head. Now, sometimes, Dreamweavers come out with this is an old meat head, isn't it? One of the older models.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Dreamweavers come out with a new style meat rig too that's a little bit wider, I guess is what you'd want to say. See, this fits in here pretty good, right? Then you want to take a toothpick and shove it through the meat head like this. And I usually break it off like this, and then I save this piece because sometimes you run out of toothpicks. There's 4 of them in the package, but I try and save that other side. Then push it through, and I trim it up a little bit here. I mean, you want to have a little bit there, but you don't want it sticking way out.
You want enough you can get it out.
Yeah, like a hammerhead shark. But right, you don't want to trim it so tight that you got to damage the piece of meat when you pull it out. So here we go. Now this strip fits pretty good here. But what I like to do is I peel off some of the couple of the end strips, and so that it's not like overlapping the meat. So, like I say, I'll pull a couple off. I mean, you don't have to do this, but this is what I do. And kind of cut that size down a little bit on it. And you can also take your scissors and trim this a little bit down towards the end. You can trim it a little bit so it kind of lays with the meat.
I feel like you must have just forgot to tell us about this part.
Yeah,
Have you ever heard about
never
this,
heard
Shane?
about this.
Yeah. So you can just trim it a little bit. See, so it lays right in line with the meat. And one thing I like about this Dreamweaver meat rig is you've got this piece of plastic here. It's like a gnaw guard, because when you break them off, a lot of times this is right here is where it gets a lot of wear, and then right above it, it gets a lot of wear in there. And so this meat rig right here, this is just right. This is just where I like my meat to be, right here. I like that treble hook to be just behind it. But if you're having trouble getting it to line up, like if the hook is riding like up in the middle of the meat, it can get caught in there, and then start spinning. So
it's very critical. You want the meat to end right where the bend of the treble is.
Right there. Now, if some of them have shorter, some of you might get a little bit longer piece of meat. You might get some with a little bit of where the tubing is a little short. So if it's not lined up there, there's a couple different ways you can do this. But this hole in the back that the line comes through, you can take a toothpick and get this set where you want to, and then jam that toothpick in there, and that'll anyway.
Yeah, I'll hold it in place.
Yeah,
you can use a rubber band.
And you can use a rubber band too.
Just
People use a
half-inch
rubber
rubber
band. And then if sometimes you can put the toothpick in here, or you can put it in the front and cut it off. Either one, because sometimes if you're jamming the toothpick in, this is a real sturdy meathead, but there's some that aren't as sturdy. You can kind of break this hole out right here. So what I'll do is sometimes put it in the front too. I got a dull toothpick here, but anyway, you can put it in there. And so anything you want to add here to this right here, this part?
No, I mean, that pretty much covers it. That's exactly how you want it rigged up. Then you just take that, and I don't know, that's the one thing that's kind of nice about our meat rigs is you can maybe just rebuild that bottom portion that once it gets chewed up or beat
Or
up.
swap it out quick.
Yeah. Or you want to switch a head out or
I
whatever.
should bring my
A
glasses
couple
here.
other things I think I'll add is that, one thing with the gnaw guard on the back of that tubing, one thing I feel that it does is it keeps the hook from being able to spin and get stuck back in the treble. A lot of times if you're if you're fishing and you have a fish and all of a sudden the fish is gone and it comes in and that line is stuck in there, and what that does is turns that hook out. Well, that tubing won't allow that to happen.
Well, if you notice, Logan he puts the tubing up over the knot.
Right over the top.
Yeah. But, that's probably the one complaint that we get about the tubing is, after, and it's just the nature of the beast, but after a while, this tubing will get some memory in it, and it'll kind of get dirty and malformed, and then, it might it might
Start to hook a little bit.
might not be straight anymore, and that's where.
And part of that's from how you store it.
Yeah, and you just have to. I mean, it's not gonna last forever. It's a piece of tube, so you may have to do some maintenance.
Yeah. The nice thing though, like with yours, is that you can literally just unclip the head portion and retie just that head portion and put it right back on.
Yeah.
A couple other things with kind of the 101 is that show that Twinkie how you
okay.
break that up.
Yeah, so the Twinkie, Shane has separated it, pretty much all of them. Yeah,
Probably didn't do as good a job as you would, George.
probably not. But in the morning, what I always do, and before I put it out, I poof these out, okay, when they go through the water. And so it gives a little more life to it. And I use this type of meat rig a lot in the morning, with these type of Twinkies, because they're a little noisier, I think, you know. They're a little noisier than, say, this fly type with the pickled sunshine, or like with this UV type right here. These seem to be a little noisier. So yeah, you want to make sure you poof those out when you put it in, but this is pretty good looking meat.
I think in dirty water too. We don't get a lot of dirty water in Ludington. It's not really a thing with the green water. I never really understood the green water until I saw it down south, and I was like, oh yeah, that's what they're talking about. We don't really. I mean, very seldom do we have that real stark color stain
around the pier heads.
Around the pier heads, but not out in the middle of the lake like you guys have. Another couple little things that, you know, the Dreamweaver meat is very consistent. The size of it is very consistent. The thickness is very consistent. But you can use these scissors to trim. So a lot of times, like if our meat's too long, you know, we'll just take these scissors and trim it up. And, you know, some guys will even, you know, run a split. Give it a little bit more movement in the back. Or if you have where it won't go in the head, I will say that the new Dreamweaver head is my favorite. That thing is amazing. And it almost always holds the meat perfectly the way you want it. But if you have one and you can't get it in there, or if your meat swells up, you can just take and just use, I mean, you can use a fillet knife, but you can just use these shears and you can just remove some thickness from that and get it to slide in. But if your meat head and your meat is not correct, it really takes the effectiveness of the meat rig away.
Sure does.
You know, you need that roll of that meat head, and I like to see it roll and then pause, roll, pause, roll, pause, and I think that's money right there.
Yeah, you don't want.
This is the new head, and as you can see, like this new head, it's the gap is in my opinion perfect. It's a perfect size. It's easy to get meat in. It's easy to get the meat out. You can actually reach in there with a pair of needle nose pliers and pull your toothpick out if you have it trimmed too short. Where this one you would be you'd be bending that plastic to get that out. But those are definitely for preparation of the meat rig part. How about how do you decide what to run? Like what's your you have this moomo meat rig. How do you pick what to put that, or you have this? Like what are the things that you are trying to?
Okay, well, can I just back up just a little bit? Something we didn't really talk about was you were talking about that roll.
Oh yeah.
But how do you achieve that roll, right? We didn't really talk about that. So most of the time, some people really try and overthink this or complicate it. Most of the time, these heads, when you get them out of the package, they're going to roll just the way you want them. A lot of it has to do with your speed too. Like most guys typically run the meat rigs slower anyway than when I'm running just spoons or just flashers and flies. I'll run the meat rigs. I run a lot of 8-inch ones, usually, on my coppers and stuff. But on my riggers and on my divers, I like to run the 10-inchers. Now up high, I'll run some 8-inchers. But when I'm fishing down deep, I like the big 10-inchers. But if it's not rolling right, you can bend this back here on these, on the heads. And this one's a little bit stiff, but I haven't had any problems with these not rolling right. But if you do, you might have to heat this a little. You got to be real careful, though.
Yeah.
You know,
It's a fine line.
Yeah, when you're doing it. And this one right here seems to roll real good, right out of the package, as do these two. But if you're having trouble, if it's just going like this, and you bend it a little bit, slow the boat down a little. Work with the speed a little bit on your boat, and then see how that is. It's really, when you're fishing and you got a lot of stuff going on, it's easy just, well, this meat rig's been working, just throw it on and put it out. But we always, my first mate and I always make a habit of sticking it down, so it's not in the prop wash, but sticking it down and seeing how that roll is. And when I say slow, I'm not talking super duper slow, but I'm talking like, 1.8, 1.9, 2.0 is a good speed for me, usually with the big 10-inch spin doctors. 8-inchers, I can run them a little bit more, but like I said, I want to pay attention to how that head's rolling. And, the bend has a lot to do with it, but so does the speed. I don't think people talk about the speed enough when they're talking about with the meathead. So you can bend it, but if your speed's not somewhere in there, it's still going to spin like
that. So that's probably the downside to meat fishing is that you pretty much have to commit to that program to do really well at it and slow down and do, whereas with like flies and stuff, you don't necessarily have to. You can bump them up a little bit, but
I will say, like, something that I definitely got from fishing with George, is that George says, they check their meathead when they put it in the water. They check it every time. They bring it in, they catch a fish, they put a new piece of meat in there, they check it before it goes back out. They're making sure that the Twinkies are spaced correctly and things are consistent. And I think you need that consistency. Like with a fly, if the fly isn't spun around itself, it's probably going to go out fine every time. But with the meat rigs, take 2 seconds, just make sure your rotation's right, send it. And it'll produce and produce and produce for you.
Or at the end of the day, like it can be something just as simple as I'm having a hard time getting this off. It's Logan.
Brand new one. Yeah.
Logan did such a nice job, but if you just pay attention to little things like that, you throw it back out and your hook's like that instead of straight. No good.
No good. And sometimes, like, see how George has this stored just through the eyelet up here, but it doesn't put any bend in storage. It's not putting any bend in this tubing, and it's keeping that knot aligned. Where some guys just wrap it as tight as they can get it, and a little more, and
that's what creates that memory in that tube, and then after a few weeks of using it or a week of using it, then it's pulling through the water like.
Well, and a lot of guys use the pool noodle method, and it does work well, but pay attention to that. You
want to store it
as straight as you can.
Part straight. Yeah.
My longtime old first mate, he's a captain now, Kevin Pomorski of Kevin's Girlfriend fame. When he was first mating for me, I would get so ticked off. I would come and I had this meat rig working great. And I'd come in the morning and he's got it wrapped around there with the head right bent right over that. I'd get on him about it. I go, Kevin, what are you doing? He go, oh, it's just straighten it out here, But when he's running his boat now,
it's totally different.
Yeah, you don't see that head bent over there. So yeah, it is important. And Adam mentioned here about checking the spacing because when you're crimping these, some guys use beads and a bobber stop and rubber bands to adjust the length. But if you crimp these down like way too tight on the ends, then it's sharp and it's gonna cause problems. It'll break off. Maybe not on the first fish, but it'll break off. So there's a fine line between having it a little bit too tight and having it too loose. And like Adam says, you got to check because, like I say, you bring it in, you throw it back out, and you don't pay attention because sometimes these will. This will slide down, and then this will be up.
You'll have a chafe in the line.
And so you don't really, like this, you don't really think anything's wrong. But you need to just take and just run your finger along there, and make sure you got that distance. This is every time because these do move. Now, if it's off an inch or two, I don't think that doesn't mean you're going to not catch a fish on it. But sometimes they'll be run right up next to each other.
You have to check that stuff because you'd be surprised. Hey, this is a nice meat rig. It's tied well, everything, but you catch a half dozen fish on it, and those fish are mean.
Mm-hmm.
Things are gonna fail. You need to keep an eye on things.
And even just netting fish, I think netting fish does more. The net itself probably does more damage to tackle than people really realize. Be really just mindful when you obviously net the fish, but be mindful to check your equipment. I always say, people.
Check your drags too.
Yeah.
I mean, because you wouldn't. It's crazy amount of people that will call here and say, well, you put junk hooks on your meat rigs or whatever, but
Straighten it out.
This is a quality VMC 9650 hook. If you straighten this out,
Yeah.
it means your drag's too tight. I mean,
If a salmon's running, a mature king, 4-year-old king, and it's making a run, and you tighten the drag until it stops running, you are going to have tackle failure. I mean, that is a lot of drag that you're applying.
they're big,
You can't
mean
stop
animals.
those fish.
Yeah.
They're big, mean animals.
And they don't want to die.
No.
Yeah, and it's so this is probably this can withstand a 30 pounds of pressure all day long, but when you got a 30-pound, your 25-pound king that's exerting a bunch of force in the opposite direction, that's way more than
I think if you're anytime with your drag, you should be able to grip the line, pull, and it should always come out. It can be tight, but you shouldn't be
like it
feeling like
tight.
you need a ton of force. And if you can't pull the drag out, it's too tight, 100%.
you're gonna have things are gonna go bad.
Yep.
So Shane, this line here on this leader, this is 50-pound test, is that correct?
50-pound test, yeah.
Yeah. What kind of line is it?
That's 50-pound big game.
Big game. Yeah, that's a real good.
Well,
Lot of chafe
I mean,
resistance.
there's better lines out there, but that's a really good line, and it's real abrasive resistant. It's a tough line, and it's a a lot of guys will retie them with like a 40 fluoro or something if they want to be stealthy or whatnot. But that's just a good quality workhorse line.
Yep. Especially, when you're using crimps, you don't really have to worry as much with 50-pound. The crimp bites it better, I feel like, than it does especially floral. But, we've been, we do a lot of tying our own rigs and have used a lot of different methods. And I tell you what, the straight out of the package is pretty solid. You're not going to have a lot of failures or anything like that. And you can get fancy and
If you
use
have a failure,
light, but
we'll give you Logan's number.
stop down.
It's personal number.
Stop down and we'll you can shake it out at Logan.
Yeah. So
And it absolutely happens. You put out thousands of these things, and there's going to be mistakes that happen, and we always take care of it. But for the most part,
I don't like a lot of people tying my rigs.
no.
Logan, I totally 100% trust him to tie my rigs.
Yeah.
Like he is meticulous
yes, he
in
is.
his process.
So getting back to that question you asked me about how to determine what to put out.
Yeah.
How to put out. In the mornings, I don't run a lot of chrome stuff first thing in the morning. Some guys do and have good success with it, but I like a lot of the basics: the whites, the blacks, the greens, the Kevin's girlfriend, and some blues, the blue bubble. And this one right here is a real good early morning one for me too at times. I wouldn't say like right in the dark, but like if I got something that's not going down there right away in the morning, I don't hesitate to put this out right here. This is
That's one of my
Tommy
favorites.
Chrome Killer. right here.
Atomic killer.
Yeah, and Atomic Killer. They make a Chrome Killer
version,
too,
which is a great.
And I run that
Yeah.
later in the day, but yeah, and so that's a good one too. And you can run like you got a green moo too, don't you? I know you got the blue moo and the green moo. I'll run that meat rig, or you can just run this one right here, this moomo behind it. Or there's a lot of different ones you can run.
Sunshine. You think?
Yeah, pickle sunshine, of course. Yeah, of course. But yeah, my whites and blacks and mostly, like I say, I either have the moo moo or a pickled sunshine, or if it's a blue one, maybe a blue moo or a green moo. Some of those, and then I like it being a little noisier in the morning with this type of a meat rig right here. And then as it starts getting lighter, I go to a lot of the chromes and that one. But the white slick, where's that white slick? This white slick works really, really good. Even it'll work good in the dark too. But I like it. When the sun's coming up a little bit, I'll run this white slick. And there's something I'm gonna play with a little bit this year. Is I'm going to have Logan make me some Purple Mirage meat rigs.
Well, that's what I was just gonna say. Is like a lot of times, like when that stops going later in the day, you just put I just put this plain gasoline behind it.
Yeah,
And it would take
Fire
back
it
off.
back up.
yeah. Because this will go in the sun and the overcast days. This goes really good. Yeah, this is a good one right here. And then the green dot, chrome green dot. Yeah, like this. There's a two-face right here, and you can run this again with something like this clear. I just happened to grab this off the boat, and with like the clear gasoline, that works good. This will be good, like on 250, 300, depending on the temperature. And then, of course, we don't want to forget the Kevin's girlfriend, and this is also really good early in the morning. Now, early in the morning, I'll run this with either the Kevin's girlfriend or the meat rig or the froggy meat rig seem to be my two favorites early in the morning. Then as it gets a little bit lighter, I've been liking this A-bomb meat rig behind it. Worked real good. Like I say, here's a couple. Here's another early morning right here. This with the Pickle Sunshine meat rig. Or this moo meat rig. We're starting out early in the morning. And then this one right here. We used to call this, there was a boat, they're not fishing anymore, but we used to call this the early bird rig because Captain Ray on that early bird used to run this a lot and have good success in the tournaments. So yeah, we call it the early bird rig. And it was discontinued for a while at Dreamweaver, but they're bringing it back now. This with the pickled sunshine.
I think that's not the real one though, George. That looks like
That's a little darker.
That's the dark green.
Yeah, that's the dark. But we call it the early and the late.
Oh,
This is the early bird rig right here, and then the other one that we run when it gets lighter is the later early bird rig, and it's got a lighter green prism tape on it. But
Wow, we just
I'm learning
all kinds of
a lot.
stuff. I might book a charter with him.
yeah. So anyway, those are some of the things, like when it's darker, I tend to run some of the, the basic patterns. And when it's lighter, I run some of the chromes. Now this was a real good one down deep this year for me, even if it was overcast or sunny, either one, running this. And I hadn't really ran this much before, but I was in Captain Chuck's, and I saw a guy buying a bunch of these. He bought like 3 or 4, some 8-inch and some stuff. But I thought, that looks pretty good. And so I got it, and I put that A-bomb meat rig behind it and was running it down deep and had good success. And running it on a low diver, too. After the sun comes up, running it down deep. So, that's a little bit behind my thinking.
Yeah.
And also, I have a good network of fishermen out there.
And that's something that we've talked about before and on the channel, but in Ludington, we're all pretty much talking to each other every morning. I mean, that George. If I don't hear from George in the morning, I figure he must be really catching fish, and I just steer my boat right towards him. But I mean, it's you know, we have a good network of people and share a lot of information. But George, you share a ton of information, more than anyone that I'm aware of, with your fishing report.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, your fishing report is very accurate to what your day was, and you know, I think that's a great place to gather some information, even if you're not fishing out of Ludington. You know, there's a lot of great information there.
Well, when I started fishing first, I kind of got into fishing a little bit later. Like there was already a lot of established fishermen and a big fisherman, famous fisherman like Shane's dad, Captain Pete Ruboyianes, and recently deceased Captain Albert Loxonen, you know, Jerry Lee. There was just, you know, a lot of guys, and I kind of, you know, looked up to those guys. I got into it, you know, with a small 22-foot boat, and like I say, came in kind of late. And I was getting most of my information from magazines, Great Lakes Angler and stuff like that, and they always talked about Ludington, so I wanted to come here. But it was tough to get information. You know, I'd come up to the fish cleaning table. You didn't want to come up there and start asking questions unless you had some fish. So I'd come up there with my one or two. I'd wait till somebody came up there with a big catch and stand
Save
across.
your fish for a couple days. And
Yeah. And, you know, and I would ask them a few questions, but it was tough getting information. I remember one day, Captain Albert on the Finlander, I went up there. What did he catch? Oh, Dodgers and squids. Dodgers and squids. What color? Oh, it doesn't matter. You know, we all know that's not true, because if you ever talk to Captain Albert, he wanted to know right down to the last detail about what's going on. But so I like to be able to, you know, help people out a little bit and give them some place to start. You know,
for sure.
because you can tell somebody exactly what you're doing, but that doesn't mean that they're going to be able to replicate your or duplicate your results. But you know, it is some place to start. So yeah, I like to do it.
such a wonderful world we live in now, at least as far as learning. Cause
Oh yeah,
it used to take a guy, you know, maybe 10 years to learn. He could learn in a winter now.
You can be successful on your first trip.
Yeah.
yeah.
If you pay attention.
Yeah, people like Adam with his reel-to-reel, you know,
The amount of
videos. And,
information out there.
yeah,
I probably, you know, I didn't really get into fishing until salmon fishing until I was in my 20s, and you know, I went to a lot of lunch after charters with George and Kevin and other captains and asked questions and you know, to pay attention and started picking up on the details that matter. And so I was very lucky to have that, and you know, I feel the same way. Like it's nice to kind of help that guy get in and give it a shot. It's a lot of fun. I mean, people, it's you get the addiction to salmon fishing for sure. You know, I mean, it's
you know,
definitely one of those deals.
there's a lot of different products out there that'll catch fish, but you know, I'm Dreamweaver hat, Dreamweaver sweatshirt, right? I'm a Dreamweaver guy. I mean, I don't run 100% Dreamweaver stuff, but I'm running a good 95% of Dreamweaver stuff because it really works. And you know, I started using the Dreamweaver stuff when Shane's dad was involved, when Roger first got involved, Roger Bogner, and I've just had really good luck with their tackle. And you know, it's tough trying to keep up with everything with the latest trends when you're a big outfit like Dreamweaver, but I think they do a really good job of it.
Yeah, I agree. I think, you know, you kind of get to a point where you're like, oh, there's probably not going to be any new products. You know, I think this, and then, you know, the Ninja board comes out, and the flip fin, which has been a tremendous addition to what I'm doing. But the Ninja board, I didn't think anybody could change the bladed board much to make it any better.
Oh, that's the best thing.
That's the best thing.
You know, yeah, you're speaking of new stuff. It's like, don't put out any new stuff. I don't have any more room on my boat. You know, I just got a 31-foot boat, and you can't even sleep on it now. I got the cabin full. And
We got to do a boat tour. We'll do it in the spring when it's most organized.
Okay.
Well, you keep your boat very organized, though.
I do.
You know where everything is, and it's okay to have a lot of things on your boat if you can find them.
If you can find them, yeah.
But if you need any of this stuff, you know, head over to Captain Chuck's in Ludington, and they have all of this wonderful meat rig stuff for sale there. And there's a lot of knowledgeable people that camp trucks too. So I mean, you always feel free to ask questions, and you know, George and myself and Shane, we're always happy to entertain questions as well. So if you see us out and about, we're always happy to talk. Unless Eli's with me.
Yeah.
Dad, we ain't talking. We ain't talking fishing. We're going bluegill fishing, man.
Yeah.
But anyways, thanks for tuning in today. I hope you guys have enjoyed. If you enjoy what you're seeing here, make sure you drop a comment, hit like, hit subscribe to the channel. It helps us more than you would ever think. And we can't wait to get out there this spring and get back on those kings.
All right. See you guys.